Good afternoon, everybody. It's Easter Friday here in Sydney, Australia, and I'm talking to Karalee Katsambanis, who's in downtown Western Australia in Perth, actually. And I'd like to welcome Karalee to the Book Advisor author interview. So, Karalee, thank you so much for spending half an hour with me today.
Well, Jackie, thank you for putting up with me to do my book.
Hey, well, it's been a wonderful journey, and I'm really looking forward to actually getting some. Haven't really had the opportunity to talk about how the whole thing went, and it's going to be fun because Karalee and I have done this whole thing virtually. And in a week's time, Karalee's coming to Sydney, so we'll get to actually meet for the first time. It's really exciting. So I'd like to just give a little bit of a background to Karalee. Karalee is an accomplished Australian television commentator, journalist, columnist, and media trainer. She has worked across Australia's mainstream TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, and online for the past 25 years. She is the mother of 3 children and 2 young adults. I've got a young adult myself. Her book, Step Parenting with Purpose, and we have a copy here, Everything You Wanted to Know But Were Too Afraid to Ask, provides valuable insights and advice to those beginning or already on their step parenting journey. Now, Karalee, just before we get into the book, I'd like you to share with people what you're working on right now.
Well, what I'm working on right now is thanks to the success of the book, and thanks, I have to say, to Jackie and the Book Advisor in providing such comprehensive, great advice on my journey in writing the book. I'm actually going to be presenting at an international summit virtually in the United States of America and Canada in a couple of weeks' time. I'm joining some of their top step parenting experts. It's a 3-day summit, and I'm going to be talking about self-care, mental health for step parents, a little bit about the similarities and differences of step parenting in Australia compared to the United States. So I'm working on that. I have a couple of talks that are lined up with some schools here in Western Australia, and I'm continuing on resurrecting some talks at libraries and things that unfortunately, due to Western Australia's COVID restrictions, such as the hard border and things, weren't able to go along last year. And I'm also always continually working on some articles to just send to various publications. Sometimes they get published, sometimes they don't. Some magazines are monthly, some are weekly. So it's sort of like just throwing the pebbles in the pond and continuing on the journey.
And that's a really interesting point you make, Karalee, because I know when I started working with you and we started talking about your marketing, I said, look, it's a 12 to 18 month gig, and it's about being, consistent and persistent. So you're a great example of that. Now, if we could just have a bit of time and focus on your book. Your book, Step Parenting with Purpose. What was the motivating factor for you to write the book and then publish your book? Because they're 2 quite different things, and a lot of people get stuck in one or both of those places. So what was your motivation?
So my motivation for writing the book was to actually make sure that other step parents didn't feel alone in what they were perhaps encountering, and took heart that in 99% of cases and things that they're going through, all step parents have undoubtedly gone through the same thing. I also wanted to make a difference in the world, as Jackie will tell all of you, that we write books to share knowledge. And I wanted to actually share some really good tips and strategies and knowledge that I've gained and I've used and I've learned, so that I know that it works, that could perhaps make a difference to a situation. It's like sort of reading a woman's magazine, and you read the little tips and you think, oh, I've been doing something for years. It could be, for example, I've gone nearly 50 years cutting onions and having watery eyes. My husband never gets that. Well, I haven't realized that he's been wearing contact lenses and glasses for almost that time as well. And I've never known the reason why. So like with cutting the onions, I read a tip once to wear some onion glasses, these clear glasses, and now years and years of that have been done. So reverting it back to the step parenting book, I thought if someone can just read something and it can make the difference to their weekend or their holiday with stepkids, and they can realize that in a lot of cases, things are beyond their control. That's what I wanted to do. And also, I didn't want to be in the 99% of people in years to come who say, I could have written a book, and they didn't. I wanted to actually be in the 1% of people because it's something that I passionately believe in. My journey is a little bit different to others. I've now been a step parent for 15 years, but in my case, I've never actually met, spoken to, or had any communication with my stepchildren's mum, who is my husband's ex-wife. And I always credit the fact that I'm a very objective, straight shooting person, and I've just worked through it all. But I'm also aware that it is not a good situation. I know that there are other people out there as well. And I want to just say this is perhaps a way to navigate through it. Jaqui, to ask your second question, the motivating factor to publish my book is that I knew that there was a market and a need for my book in the marketplace, as arrogant as it sounds. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, but when I first became a step parent 15 years ago, the only books I found on the market had statistics. How many step families there were, how many divorces there were, how many separations there were. I was basically 32, 33 years old, never married, never had kids, and I was just thrown into this situation. I mean, I chose to do it, but it was unlike anything that I thought about. And I also just thought that writing my book 15 years down the track gives you more credibility. It gives you a cooler head to be able to look at a situation and to actually realize whether what you did back then was the right thing or whether it's the wrong thing. And everyone makes mistakes. So yeah, the motivating factor was I knew that there was a need for this in the marketplace. And I remember Jackie's first question saying, seriously, there are lots of books out there. And I said, yeah, but there's not going to be a book like my book.
And I think we were right. So that's great insight, Karalee. And tell me, how much time did you have to commit to write and publish and market your book? And that's a bit of a leading question because you're still marketing it. So, but to give people who are starting out or thinking about their writing journey, roughly how much time a week or a month have you had to commit to this book project of yours?
So when I first wrote the first draft, which I thought, yay, that'll be right, the first draft, I wrote the first draft in around 4 months, working on it for about 2 to 3 hours, 5 days a week. And of course, then I met Jaqui, and the new ball game began as to what to do and what needed to be done. But it's also a fact to say to people that a book doesn't write or sell itself. You've also got to keep your eye on, you know, your main long-term gain. And in my mind, I had a picture of my book on the bookshelves of a library or a bookstore with someone picking it up, looking at the blurb at the back, thinking, you know what, this is someone that's been in this. This might just give me what I'm looking for. You can't, I'm lucky in that I have always worked casually the last few years since having kids, so I had more time. And I know that probably a lot of you have full-time jobs or permanent part-time jobs, and you're thinking, I don't have the time. But you've got to make the time. And we've all got 24 hours in one day. It's how we allocate those 24 hours. So as I said, I started writing it, I think, between 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the morning, 11 at night and 1 in the morning. So it's just what works for you. It's just getting it down there in there, because sometimes writing it, you're actually quite surprised, but you should also be enjoying doing it. It shouldn't be a chore. You should be focused on what your end result is.
Yeah, it's a really good point, you know, the enjoyment factor. And I guess one of the big enjoyment factors for a lot of people is launching their book. And last year we were planning that, you know, we thought that COVID might be over, and we were thinking I might be able to get over to Perth and be there for the launch, but that didn't happen. So you actually managed to have a physical launch in Perth. And so how did that go during COVID?
So the physical launch, let me tell everyone, happened 6 months after the scheduled launch. So the book was only published a few days before, and then COVID happened. And I remember just ringing Jaqui in tears, just saying, my gosh, what's going on? What do I do? And Jaqui, as always, is very practical. And she said, right, now you've got to really get onto the Instagram and this, which was always part of the content marketing plan. So I literally spent 2 days, at least 20 hours out of those 2 days, going onto Instagram, finding out who the influencers were, direct messaging things, this, that, and what have you. And I actually think that the one advantage that COVID gave me was people were astounded that, you know, there was someone from Perth, Western Australia, and they must have just checked out stuff online. And I found that within 24 hours, 48 hours, a lot of people had got back to me. Now, I didn't really know how to use Instagram properly. And I look back now and I cringe that, you know, I was direct marketing Hugh Jackman, Deborah Lee Furness, Oprah, Dr. Phil, and she'd liked a couple of my posts. I'm thinking, why aren't they replying to my messages? But the main step parenting experts were around America and Canada. They were really good, and they were astounded that, you know, there was another book out there. Because you might ask, why did I focus on that market? Well, there's 400 million people over in America, and there's a lot more step and blended families. Getting used to the lingo. For example, they use the terms bio mum, bio dad, high conflict ex, high manipulation, terms that really Aussies don't use. There's also the spelling that I had to get up to speed with, mom, not mum, because when I first started tagging, I'm thinking, why aren't they responding? You know, the Z instead of the S for realize and things like that. But the thing is, I really think they went and they Googled where Perth was, and they actually said that given our, no, some of them did, they said, well, given your hard border, you're an island within an island. And the funny thing was, they did actually order my book from my website, which was great. But I'll never let them know that the postage that it cost me to send it to them was just astronomical. And my book actually didn't arrive in the United States for 5 months due to COVID, due to no planes going across there. So I just, although we'd got e-commerce on my website for Amazon and stuff like that, I guess COVID altered the thing with my book launch, and that I just wanted to get more global awareness for it. And that actually happened because everybody that got the copy, you know, there were videos from Louisiana and Virginia and the deep south of America that they'd never had anything like this before, and they were dancing around and having books. So that sort of happened. But look, the physical launch, what had happened was a lot of legal practitioners in WA really liked my book. One leading one, Simon Creek with HHG Legal, had read it. He actually endorsed it, and he said, I wish that a lot of my clients could read your book before they come to see us or after the first consultation, so that we can concentrate on litigating. They can get their emotions in track. And he was always going to do the launch, and I'm going to do some seminars for him. But COVID, yes, it was devastating. And to this day, and for as long as I live, I'll still think, you know what, I didn't get a chance to sell X number of 100 books at talks that I already had done. So I said to Jackie, I think I have to be practical, that there are boxes of books in the garage, but it's the same with everyone. I used a West Australian printer, and everyone was in the same boat, that we're very lucky that our shipment arrived, because I had some author friends where it was still stuck up in, I don't know, the ship went through Wuhan or something. They never actually got their consignment of books. So, but I will give you a tip. Whatever Jackie says, do, because Jackie told me for the March launch to order my books before Australia Day. So I did. And my author friend that ordered after Australia Day still hasn't received the full complement. So I was very lucky. So yeah, you've got to get on with that. So look, it's been good. I mean, it's been a journey. The other thing is COVID is also a bit of an excuse. It's outside your hands. There's nothing you can do. You have to work within what you can do. Yeah. And then with the launch, we did it virtually. Jackie zoomed in, some other people zoomed as well. And it was just the physical launch, which was great. It was just sort of like a full stop exclamation point to do. But look, I chose not to do a virtual launch at the time because we really thought that because Western Australia had no COVID, we'd be able to do it. But, you know, there were politics involved and things. But I'm glad I did it. But I sort of was launching all the way through from March, just getting it out there. Yeah, shamelessly self-promoting on Instagram, which is what you have to do. I mean, I was doing a post a day, just getting it out there because...
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point, Karalee, that a lot of people think that they do one launch and that's it. And one thing I'm always very clear about with my clients is that, in fact, you can do multiple launches or you can do multiple events. They don't have to be launches. You've just got to constantly find meaningful but different ways to keep your book or make your book become top of mind for a period of time. So
that's all right. Yeah, that's right. And look, and I've had people come up to me, they say, look, I guess it's a little bit like needing a plumber or an electrician. due to COVID, because there's a lot of family things. I've already had quite a few people who say, oh, you wrote a book, and a friend of mine said. So it's sort of like that. And I think for people watching this and listening, when you're writing a business book, it's a niche market. You're not going to be a J.K. Rowling. It's a niche market, but you've got to remember why you're actually writing it. And it's also to build a brand, build credibility. I still find it difficult to put author on, the things or whatever, because I still think
you are one now.
But you are what you are, which is great. But you've also got to enjoy what you talk about and know that your book, I always said, if it makes a difference to one person, my job is done. And I've had emails from people that just say, thank you for writing it. Oh my goodness, I've been a step parent for 30 years. Wow, I've never realized that. And there's no right or wrong. It's just to know that I went through a lot of struggles and there was no support or help out there. And as I said, like in America, they talk about everything. There's stepmom day and stepdad day and we don't have that in Australia. It's a very different market, same as the UK as well.
Okay. So I'm just going to skip around a bit. So what was we were talking about the great things about writing and publishing a book. So what was the hardest part about writing your book?
I think the hardest part was the critical analysis by Jaqui and others, that when I thought something was really great to keep in the book, the same as I'm saying to everybody, I'm giving you tips and strategies to help you look at things another way, realizing that Jaqqui's able to have that objective brain to say, look, I like what you've put, but you need to write it a different way. I tried to be as objective as I could be, but there were a couple of subjective areas where, while Jaqui said, look, take it out, I wanted to keep it in, and we just had to work on that. And I think one of the most difficult things also was, it was very funny, because the original title of my book was Black Jelly Beans. And I thought it was great. And my explanation was going to be, well, in a packet of jelly beans, there's always a black one. Some people love the aniseed, some people hate it. But like a step parent, they're all part of the mix. You've got to learn to get on with them. And I thought my title was fabulous, until Jaqui said, oh, it doesn't really say what your book is about, etc., etc. On a shelf, black jelly beans. What does that say? You've got to talk. And I look back now at the original title and I think, yeah, Jaqui was definitely right. And I have a giggle. I incorporated that little analogy into the book. But I think it's also realizing the hardest thing, that you're so passionate about your own book and your subject matter, but you've got to have almost like an out-of-body experience and realize that other people are reading it critically because they want you to succeed, but they can see some areas that you've been lacking in that you haven't been able to see.
That's great. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? Now tell me, I'm going to skip over one question because I want to come back to this marketing. But
Sure.
So you've talked a little bit about that you kind of marketed on Instagram, because that's actually where your target audience was. And for other people, their target audience might be LinkedIn or it might be Facebook. But I think it would be really interesting for people to just listen to, how did you work out where to market and where to put your energy, because you can't market to everybody.
You can't. Look, I guess going back to that period where COVID had hit the world and I was onto Instagram, and I thought, all these people are well known in the United States, etc. I'll put my energies there. I still did some posts on Facebook and I still did some posts on Twitter, but I thought Twitter's not really it, and LinkedIn. And the thing is, the content marketing strategy is 12 to 18 months. I'm now going to be in my latter 6 months, and I'm already drawing up my own content marketing plan specifically for LinkedIn, because I just found at the time, not as an excuse, it was quite overwhelming last year with everything going on, everything being cancelled and stuff like that. And I thought, I can't do the justice to LinkedIn that I want to be able to do like I have on Instagram. And then I thought, but it's a book. In the scheme of things, the book is not really going to date as such. A couple of statistics might, but that's the same with all books. I'm going to really try and focus more on LinkedIn and try and get the proper target market as well. And I think part of it also is, you've got to also be prepared to know that some of your strategy may not be working. I don't think I've come to the end of the road on Instagram, but I did Instagram lives and I did webinars and stuff on Instagram. I feel that those of you that are using Instagram, I posted once a day, if not twice a day. I did stories. I've really exhausted that. I will still keep it going, but I will branch out a little bit more to other stuff on Instagram to give a bit of a holistic view. But LinkedIn, I'm now going to do a nice passive aggressive marketing strategy and just say to people, you need this book. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think it's a matter of knowing it, and also being confident to realize that if you don't know a lot about a particular social media platform, so a lot of information about some of Jacquie's clients have written books on, you know, on LinkedIn and other strategies. Just have a go and realize that if it doesn't work, no one's going to know that it's not working for you. Only you're going to know. But see if you can make it work for you. I think that's a lot of social media. Make it work, and don't feel embarrassed about doing that shameless self-promotion. I remember on Facebook, I did a post to everyone to say, follow me on Instagram if you can, but be aware, this is for my book marketing strategy. This is shameless self-promotion, you know, screenshots of books and appropriate quotes and this and people that got the book in it. Just be aware. Don't hide your light under a bushel. If you don't promote yourself, no one else is going to.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. And certainly a lot of the people that I work with, you know, have to kind of move through that fear of being seen to promote their book. And I always say to people, the reality is that there's no better person than you to promote your book. And if you don't share it with the world, they're not going to know. So, you know, you've got to kind of get over that one. Moving on from that, what has the book achieved for you? I mean, has it met your expectations? And if not, in what areas hasn't it met them? And maybe in what areas has it surprised you?
I think it's met my expectations that I actually did publish it. But I actually did get it published. And I achieved that goal, because I think any budding author, or if you believe in something, you want to do that. What I've also achieved, it sounds cliche, but I've gained new friends, albeit some of them I may or may never meet, but we're good friends on social media, and we're actually friends.
Yeah.
You know, it's what's the word? It's given me that I guess that confidence to realize that this is something that you can actually take control of and be in charge of. You're like your own little CEO of it.
Yeah.
And naturally you need help around you. I mean, I know this isn't about the book, but really without Jaqui and her team, everyone has moments of wobbliness and self-doubt and wanting to rewrite the last page 2 hours before, you know, and then you worry, what if no one buys it? And this is a funny story. So when the book was launched, and I got a sale from my Australian website, I thought, oh, my hubby or my mum's actually bought it. And they weren't the first one to buy it. It was actually somebody in New South Wales whom Jaqui didn't know. They actually bought it. And I thought, wow, someone else has actually bought it. Because I thought, you know, all the friends and everything. But that's it. But I also think it gives you that self-belief and it gives you that encouragement. And people watching this, please don't think that everything that I've done, I got yeses straight away. There are a couple of American magazines that I've only just achieved an article in there 12 months down the track. I submitted and then I didn't hear anything. And then they said, look, this isn't quite our audience or target market. So I went back to them and I said, why? What am I doing wrongly? And they have a different way of writing as well. And then I actually pitched to them and said, well, maybe your readers would like to hear something from Australia. And that sort of turned it for me. But I've kept all my email rejection letters, all the initial things like that, all that stuff. But I guess my analogy to everyone watching this is, you've got to imagine that you're a steam train going on your journey and going up a hill. Sometimes the coal is going to run out and you're going to come to a stop. And then you get fired up again with another thing to do it. You also have to remember the analogy of when you apply for a job. If you don't get a job, that's that organization's loss, not yours, because it means there's something better around the corner. So if you don't get an article published or your appearance on the television or the radio gets cancelled, don't take it personally. Take control of it and try and work it to your advantage, because you've got to be ready when the door opens. And I know that when I was lucky enough to have a launch on Sky News because I commentate on a lot of shows. It was interesting because I literally had an hour to be launching this book nationally on, you know, Australian and New Zealand television. And part of my website wasn't finished yet. And I just remember emailing the website guys saying, look, we might get orders, you've got to do this. But the thing is, that opportunity would not have come again. It had to be ready. They had an interview that had fallen down. They said, you've got your book coming, do it. And it all happened. And then, as we know, COVID really happened. So it would have been that you've just got to be ready, but you've also got to embrace your rejection as well and try not to get too downhearted about it, but also take some objectivity as to maybe why it was rejected. Was your article not written correctly? Was it too wordy? Did you not meet the criteria? And also learn from that as well. It's that fine balance of having your self-belief and your confidence in yourself, but not also being arrogant. Also realizing that you may not, as I said, meet what the editor or the radio producer is actually wanting.
Okay, really interesting insights there. I'm now going to move to our quick quiz.
Oh, yes.
Which is the kind of, well, we've had fun anyway, but this is the really fun bit. So it's a quick kind of 7 questions, and don't think too much about this. So how do you read? Ebook or print book?
Print book.
Okay, best place for reading? Couch or bed?
Couch.
Marking up books, are you a page folder or do you write in books?
Write in books and use post-it notes.
Oh, really? Reading style, are you read a few, skip a few, or do you read from beginning to end?
I read from beginning to end.
Right. Outside business books and stuff, do you prefer fiction or non-fiction?
Non-fiction.
Okay, sharing books. This is always my hard one. Are you a hoarder or a giver?
I'm both. I'm actually both. I'm both.
Okay. Writing style. Well, this is interesting given what you've been saying about America. Are you Oxford English or Australian English or US?
I've got to say I am US, and it was really, really tricky to try and get back into that Oxford English, you know, the S and the Zs. And now I intersperse between both. Right,
that's an interesting thing. So, and this, I think it's a bit of an interesting one to explore because, you know, obviously, you know, you've spent a bit of time in America. So when you're writing those articles, you've got to kind of put a different hat on almost.
Yes, I do. And of course, I should say that maybe I'll be gearing up for my next book and I'll have to make time that for Jaqui this time, it's all proper Australian English.
Well, there we go. Karalee, thanks so much for your time today. Just before we go, Karalee's book's actually available on her website. And Karalee, you might just want to share what that website URL is.
Yeah, sure. It's www.KaraleeKatsambanis.com.
Terrific. And if you can't find it there, you can also go to the Book Advisor website because we have it available on that as well. And it is on Amazon. So you can go there as well to pick it up. And just for people who are step parents, what's, I guess, 2 of the main messages of your book?
Well, first of all, it's not your job to fix your stepchildren.
Yep, good one. What's the second one?
The second one is, look, there's no, hang on one second. I'm just trying to think. A lot of the advice that you get from well-meaning people on how to actually step parent your kids is actually, I've gone blank, Jaqui. Sorry. I know this quite. I was thinking of this. Hang on one tick.
That's all right.
Give me just one tick because, you know, someone's going to look at that. Just hang on one tick. This is very unprofessional of me, but you know what? If I don't actually get this, then it's not going to help anybody, is it? Because this is important. Here we go. Taking step parenting advice from someone who's never had stepkids is like taking parenting advice from someone who's never had kids.
Yeah.
They all mean well, but they really don't know what they're talking about. So you make sure that you surround yourself with people in your sphere.
That's terrific advice. And you know, I became a step parent before I was a parent.
Like me.
That was a really interesting, exercise. And And if I'd had your book had been around then, it would have been really useful. And I do remember, and my now very adult stepchildren, were recalling to me the other day that one of the first things I said to them is, I'm not the evil stepmother. I'm not going to tell you what to do. That's your dad's job, and I will be here to support you. But you need to talk to me. And that was kind of the best thing I could think of coming up with at the time.
Yeah, it is. And that's it. And look, it's a hard thing for people to hear because, but it's an important thing as well. We all know that you listen to things, but don't base your thing on it, because a lot of people have no idea what being a step parent is about, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. Hey, Karalee, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm so looking forward to catching up with you in a week for real.
In real.
So much looking forward to that. And thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Jaqui. And look, good luck to everybody watching. Just keep working on your manuscripts and doing it. If anyone can do it, you all can do it.
Fantastic.